attending our first Maximizing Value conference. And we've been making a joke on our team that, it's been our desire to provide the best content possible to our dealer friends to help them make good decisions for their futures, share with them the information that we have that might be helpful. So hopefully we're going to have the maximum best content here for you. And I think we all already appreciate that we've already gotten the maximum number of steps that we want to take before we go to any meeting. NADA was kind enough to allow us to have an event and the win for our first year. So we're very grateful for that. And Mike Stan's going to be here later. And maybe at the end of the day, if you reflect upon what you learned today and you look at your watch or your phone and you see the number of steps, you'll be grateful before your head hits the pillow. So we are very grateful for your attendance today. I want to thank my team for working hard to put on the conference. It's no small feat. And we've had the pleasure, all of us working in the automotive industry. We love the product. We love the customers. I've been part of automotive for 30 years. I think I saw Don Reese in the audience earlier today. Don, it's 30 years this year, I think we first met. And so what I really love about coming here is the people. And we serve auto dealers, and many auto dealerships are now owned by the public companies, and we have strong relationships there. Most of our clients are families, and we really enjoy the interaction that we have with those folks that are interested in buying, and sometimes when it comes to their point, they're interested in selling. So the relationships that we've created over the years, we value a lot, and so thank you for coming and spending your time here versus another conference that you could have attended. And this conference is really intended for folks that are interested in growing their group, so consolidation, and then also improving the dealerships that they already have. So those are the two focuses of this conference: improving what you have and investing more wisely. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Steve Greenfield's coming to us, the founder of Automotive Ventures, which is an investor in early stage auto tech companies. I think you're now in your third fund, Steve. Is that right? And he's going to tell us about AI. Please give him a nice warm welcome.
I've got Mike. I'm Mike. Remember that. You can get that for questions. Yeah. I think my mic works here, right? People can hear me? Great. Well, Alan, it is an honor. It's always nice with these things to say you were at the first one. And in 20 years, we'll both have a little bit more gray hair. Maybe you'll ask me to be back up. I'll be like on my walker by then. But it's an honor to be here. Thank you. It's a daunting audience. This is, I think I'm presenting 8 times. This is my 4th presentation already this week. I was out here for AFSA, and this by far was the one I was looking forward to the most, largely because of the content. So did you want to walk through the agenda here? I guess he was going to, but forget that. We'll get right in. Largely because of this, I've been talking to Alan about this topic for a while, and you're about to walk onto the exhibit floor at NADA. And no offense to vendors, but you're already, I'm sure, numb to the AI pitches. And if you aren't, you're going to be, by the end of this week for sure, that every vendor is going to be professing to have something AI related. I wanted to take a different approach, an approach that potentially could hit you in a positive way in your pocketbook. So what I'm going to do here, as Alan said, we've made now 55 investments in 5 years, and there's hardly any, maybe none, or early stage companies that are innovating in the dealer facing space that we don't see and we don't have a chance to invest in. That's part of what we're trying to build from our brand. But I'm going to unveil a little bit about our thesis area and why we think AI can impact dealers in a different way that can drive more profitability for you overall. And I'm gonna not bury the lead, as I've been taught. We're going to come back to this at the end, and you may roll your eyes. But before you roll your eyes, give me the 28 minutes to build my thesis in terms of how, per dealership location, AI is going to give you an opportunity in the short to midterm to create this amount of wealth per location, bookended, depending on how aggressive you want to be and how you want to adopt it. So now that I've given you the punchline, let me rewind the tape a little bit. Where's Eric? Eric, you in here somewhere? Maybe he's out front. Eric helped me pull together the presentation this weekend with a lot of good data that you're about to see. I'm sure that he wouldn't even know what this is, but for many in the audience, we're going to try to rewind the tape. I have fond memories of this fiasco back in the day. So let me just level set around AI because AI is a buzzworthy term that's thrown around a lot. And I'll try to provide a framework that's easy to digest that might be helpful for you in the future. And that's really around these three areas, right? So on the far left, this is the ChatGPTs, OpenAI's, Anthropic's, the tools that I guess most people I hope have used. Who has used ChatGPT at this point? Great, good to hear, good to hear. Be important for today's conversation. And this uniquely has the opportunity to, in the early stages, build productivity gains for your employees. Anyone's in front of a screen, be it a phone, a laptop, or a desktop computer, build productivity gains for all of your employees, which should naturally mean that we get throughput benefits from every single one of your employees that's doing repetitive tasks in front of a screen. On the far right, the promise of robotics, and this is the Boston Dynamics robot that just 3 weeks ago here in Las Vegas at CES. Hyundai, interestingly enough, had the largest booth in the West Hall where we're going to be tomorrow, yet no cars, all robots and automation, production line automation, which is very telling that they invested so heavily in CES. And CES is probably twice as large a convention as NADA. So it's a monster convention that runs over into many hotels. Yet Hyundai, the largest exhibitor at CES, had no cars in the booth at all. So it's very telling. But these robots, whether you believe this human form is going to catch on like Elon Musk believes, or they'll look like something different, uniquely provide the opportunity to disrupt the blue collar workforce, right? Hyundai and many of the Chinese automakers are saying we're going to have quote unquote dark factories where you'll never have to turn the lights on because there won't be any humans in the factories. And these robots will be able to work tirelessly 24/7 and churn out whatever we're churning out, be it TVs or phones or cars in this case. And so on the far right, you're looking at potential efficiency gain and or disruption for blue collar workers. And in the middle, who's been in a Waymo? Okay. There are Zookses here, if that's the plural of Zooks, the Amazon funded bread box looking car. If you get a chance, they're going from hotel to hotel. I would highly encourage you to step into an autonomous vehicle. Know thy enemy and know what you're dealing with. It's shocking. I won't say much more. We could talk to the people that have ridden in Waymos, but your before and after perspective on autonomous vehicles, once you take the first one, will be shockingly different, And in dense urban areas, you're going to start to see adoption. And the real breakthrough here will be if they can drive the cost per mile down to something lower than ownership, then we will find consumers who, in America, the average household has 1.9 cars in their driveway or their garage. You may see in dense urban areas in the next 5 years, consumers start to substitute at least that second car in some cases for these autonomous vehicles if we can drive the cost per mile down enough. So the only other thing I'll say about AI today is this. I've lived through all of these technologies, and at the moment, it was very easy to dismiss them. If you think of the very early PCs, they were clunky and really hard to use. You think of the early days of the internet. For those that were around and remember, you plugged your phone line into a jack in the wall, and God forbid if your mother's best friend calls and then it disconnects the phone line, and you got to start from scratch downloading that JPEG that took 20 minutes to download. If you remember those days, in the early days. And then how many people in here were BlackBerry users? How many of those people still miss that keyboard? Thank you very much. I still curse this thing. It's like my vocabulary is like 20 words. I don't really understand how this thing can't figure out what I'm trying to type. It just doesn't make sense to me. I would crack this thing in half like 5 times during the day. I get so frustrated. But when Steve Jobs first introduced this thing, as a hardcore BlackBerry user, I was like, who's going to buy a phone with a flat screen? It was like just hard to use, etc. But look how transformational. I assume many of you in this room would sacrifice me chopping off your finger than me taking away your phone for like 30 minutes at this point, because it's so integral to everything that we do. And many believe that AI can be much more transformational than these other technologies combined. And it would be too easy to dismiss the first iteration, like I was guilty of with all these other technologies, to say it's simply a different way to query data. So how many are feeling that they're already substituting what used to be Google searches for ChatGPT searches? Okay, yeah. So this is the use case that's powerful right now. It's like I get a half decent answer out of this thing, and with every iteration, it's getting better. So this is an existential threat to Google and anybody who relies on Google traffic. But I would encourage you not to think through the keyhole of saying this is only a substitute for asking questions of Google overall. Because as I'm about to show you here, I think there are big implications for all of you operating businesses. And then for the really bullish case, I don't believe this necessarily, but some believe we're on the cusp of literally untethering growth in GDP. And when the computers get smart enough, we're going to be able to outsource all of this work, be it either white collar work or blue collar work. There will be big implications on unemployment, but GDP growth will go from 2-3% a year to 10-20% compounded as this thing grows. And this is why companies like OpenAI are now worth close to $1 trillion. The most valuable private company, although now with what Elon's done this week with SpaceX, maybe SpaceX is temporarily the most valuable private company on the face of the earth. But many of the bulls that are investing in these technologies, this is why so much money is going into this, because of this promise. This technology may be more transformational than these other technologies that we lived through in the past. Okay, so I'm going to borrow a slide from Glenn Mercer. People probably know Glenn Mercer quite well. This is net profit before tax. Important slide to anchor you on for the rest of the presentation. Net profit before tax. Can I get my time up here as well, just so I can keep myself accountable? Otherwise, I will stay up here all day, Alan, all day. Not really. So this slide, if you haven't seen it, is a great slide. And by the way, if you want these slides, I'm happy to send them to you afterwards. I'll have my email on the last slide. This is net profit before tax for the average dealer location in America, according to NADA data. And there's a few interesting things here. One is not in 50 years has the average dealer in America lost money before tax, but also it's been eerily in this band of between 2 to 3%, except COVID, where we know what happened with COVID, and we've drifted back down to not quite pre-COVID 2% net to gross, but we're getting closer, it seems, with every quarter. So remember this number, because I'm going to show you this next slide, and this is where it gets dangerous, especially for those CFOs in the room. So what I did with the help of Alan and Eric this weekend was try to unpack rough financials, very crude financials for the 18,000 dealers in America. So according to my perspective, my data that I was able to collect, the average dealer generates about $62 million per year in sales. Gross profit is about $10.5 million. Expense sucks up most of that. That's how we get to that 2% net to gross number overall. And of the $9.2 million in expense, about 47%, or almost half, is labor, sales commissions, and other folks that you're employing at the dealership. And that all nets out to $2.5 million net profit before tax for the average dealer in America. The publics are more profitable, as Alan reports in his report every quarter. But the average dealer, so fixate on that 2.5 for a minute, and then fixate also on this $4.3 million in expense, because I'm going to take you on a journey where there may be an opportunity to have more of that labor expense be saved and flow through to profit in the bottom line. And why it's important, there's a gentleman in the room that publishes these numbers as well, which is important to all of us in terms of the blue sky multiples by franchise, as you know, and woe be anybody who's got a link in our affinity store. I understand, on the right-hand side, but roughly here in the middle, you've got a 5 times multiple of income before tax for the blue sky value overall. So my crude math here, if you take the $2.5 million of the average dealer in America, what they're printing right now in terms of net profit before tax, multiplied by the 5 times, you get a $12.3 million blue sky value. Good, you tracking? Good. Now we a little more complex. So how does AI help potentially us attack that labor bucket, save labor costs, which will drop more profit to the bottom line, which means all of your net worths go up? Well, some speculate that we are on the cusp of really unlocking productivity gains, as I said, for white collar workers, anyone who's in front of a computer screen. And yes, in the early days, probably as we're about to find out when we walk the floor here tomorrow, you're going to see there's a lot of vendors that are going to ask you to subscribe to SaaS products, right? Hey, we can drive productivity for your employees, right? Just order this like $2,000 a month add-on to the CRM or whatever it might be. And you may find in the short term, you're actually spending more money because whatever productivity gains that are manifesting as reduced labor costs are more than offset by software costs. But over time, The green bar should be a recapture, a net savings, even after spending more money on software, because these vendors, if they're doing their job well, are helping you attack productivity and helping you drive more productivity, which means every employee can be more productive. And for the same or more revenue, your costs actually shrink overall. And the green bars are net savings that you should be able to realize. So this is Steve math for you. So what I've done is I've walked through the first column. The current column is where we are today, referencing that waterfall that I showed with the green and the red and the purple. So $4.3 million in personnel expense for the average dealer in America, which is 47% of your monthly cost structure. Net profit margin or net profit before tax per year of 2.5, and multiply that times 5 and you get the blue sky at the bottom. If you believe that you could start to implement AI to help with productivity for your employees, you can play out a few different scenarios. A 10% gain, 10% reduction in labor costs, and what that would do to your net profit before tax, and thus the 5 times multiple overall. And if you were able to be more aggressive by working with vendors and or building tools in-house, then you may actually capture more profit every month, which means you multiply that by 5, your net worth's going up. But it actually gets better because I don't think that the biggest opportunity is necessarily on the cost side of the house. I think that the secret is that for those dealers that do want to adopt early and want to get more aggressive, I think there's an opportunity to leverage some of these tools to gain market share. So as you look at revenue overall, whether it's on variable ops, fixed ops, or even just like, if you're very customer centric and you're saying, how do I provide a better customer experience? For example, the first iteration of these AI tools that I'm hearing from owners, I'm sure many in the room here are experiencing this, is that you pay $2,000 or $3,000 a month for some AI tool to answer all my phone calls. So now I'm not dropping half the calls during working hours, and after hours, every call gets answered. And when you look at the data from these companies that are diagnosing like the context of these calls, most of them are just consumers saying hours of operation. Is my car ready? How do I pay for it? When can I pick it up? When can I schedule service? Really, really easy to have AI answer phones after hours and get people scheduled for work. And there are productivity gains already. You're getting more throughput, more revenue per employee because you're able to buy a fairly rudimentary AI tool and start to attack one of the problems, which is answering all the phones. And the consistency of those answers are better. So I think that there'll be all kinds of opportunity should you want to. You can attack also on the revenue side, and then you get a flywheel effect, right? Clearly, if you are able to conquest sales, new, used, ROs in your local market more effectively than you have in the past by using some of these tools, and at the same time, you're able to slowly but surely enable your employees to be more effective and drive costs out of the bottom line, then you have this opening mouth of margin, right, that passes even more profitability to the bottom line. And then I would hypothesize, and I would lean on maybe the folks in the room here that are backed by private equity, that as a class, the whole class becomes more attractive if 18,000 dealers stop printing $2.5 million profit a year, but start printing $4 million profit a year. And we go from 2% net to gross to persistently across all dealers 4% or 5%. And I think this is how I think the next 5 years will play out. The rising tide here will rise for everyone, because even if you don't believe a word I say, but you start going to 20 group meetings and you start realizing there are dealers in the room that are starting to use some of these tools and they are generating more profit in certain departments, you're going to clue in. You're going to be like, well, I got to get on the bandwagon. And the good thing is, on the cost side, I think every dealer in America can implement the same tools and get the same benefit in terms of driving more productivity per employee. On the revenue side, I don't think that's the case. I think to the victors go the spoils of war. I think some dealers out there probably are already figuring out that they can start automating processes, provide a better CSI to consumers, and start absorbing market share, either in fixed ops or variable ops. But this is a zero-sum game. So I don't suspect that AI is going to increase new car sales per year or used car sales per year or magically increase the number of ROs that are being done by consumers in the US. So on the cost side, I think every dealer in America is eventually going to be more profitable because they're going to figure out ways to use AI to drive productivity gains for their employees. On the revenue side, just to reiterate, the early adopters are going to be able to steal market share from you if you don't want to attack them first. And I think that will be what we see play out on the revenue side, is the early adopters do get a benefit. So that's great for me to stand up here and talk about all this stuff theoretically, but how would I start if I were you? And like always in life, I like to think about a roadmap of light, medium, and heavy, right? You can start wherever you want. You want to go directly to heavy, choose your own adventure. But I would think of it as this. So today, how many of you in the audience believe that your employees are using ChatGPT in some capacity? Okay, that shouldn't necessarily make you happy, because they may be uploading documents and such that they shouldn't be. That's another topic entirely. But yeah, I mean, anyone who didn't raise your hands, you're wrong. I am certain there are people either handling leads or in your marketing department that are definitely using these tools today. Because if I'm a 24-year-old kid, I am finding as many shortcuts as possible, and I'm using as many of these tools to make my life as easy as possible. And I think that's the way you should be thinking about this, right? So now we're talking about every employee that's doing any repetitive tasks getting a 10%, 20% productivity gain. ChatGPT or whatever tools, you should be encouraging your employees in a safe environment, so they aren't leaking intellectual property out to the world, of using tools, exploring tools, and getting productivity gains. Now, what they do with that extra time, they may take more smoke breaks, as I'm about to show you, which is a different problem entirely. If you don't have a way to, as you get more productivity out of your employees, to make sure that they aren't squandering that excess time, that's another issue entirely. Phase two is the intelligent agent. So once we start giving these tools to the employees and they start realizing, well, these tools are pretty kick-ass, what are they going to do? At the end of the day, if they haven't gotten through all their tasks for the day, they're going to say, hey, I haven't contacted these 10 customers. I need to go to my kid's soccer practice. Would you mind following up on all these leads and seeing if you can get these people scheduled for the next week? And report back to me, because when I come in at 8 the next morning, my boss is going to ask me, did I follow up on those people? And I want a report that says, how successful were we with following up? The nice thing about these machines is, like, they're tireless. They'll work 24/7. And once you train them correctly, they will just grind away at work, an endless amount of work. And whereas you might, on the left-hand side with a co-pilot phase, get 10%, 20% productivity gains per employee, with the intelligent agents, an enterprising person could have any number of these things working for them. So you get a multiplicative effect. And then the phase that many don't want to talk about on the right-hand side, the light version of this is when these agents become good enough, then when you have somebody who retires or you have somebody who quits, you may elect in the future, like say, look, my employees now have become productive enough that I don't need to backfill those roles. And now we start really picking up cost savings overall. The aggressive case, if you wanted to, and we're seeing this now with tech companies like Google and Facebook, they not only are giving tools to their software developers to be more productive, they're firing software developers. They're saying, hey, the lowest performers, we're just going to get rid of. Because a good software developer with these tools can be 10x as effective as a poor performing software developer. And they're taking the opportunity here to cull the weakest within their ranks, and they will be more profitable as a result. I'm not proposing that you do that, but over time you'll have the opportunity to say, how do I continue to drive more profitability? So to further on what we should do, I think I would start holding my vendors accountable. You may have software developers, some dealers, a few dealers do, but you're probably going to have to rely on your vendors to do this kind of stuff. But you need to hold your vendors accountable, as always, but specifically around which metrics you want to drive overall. So let me plant two seeds, which I find are very curious. And I don't have a good explanation, but I have a thesis. Number one is this. I'm not actually going to say anything. I'll let you read this slide. And exactly. Laugh if you want. It's not that funny. I have a hypothesis why this is true. But listen, we had DMSs emerge in the 70s. We have CRMs emerge. We have the internet. Now you spend per location 30 grand a month on all these vendors we're about to see tomorrow. How can this be? Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. So this could be as an example of one metric to say, like, hey, can I move that metric? And then hold your vendors accountable to say, I want you to move this metric. And if you don't help me move this metric, then you're fired. Good. Accountability is good. This is the second one. So if I go back to the beginning of the internet, these are NADA numbers, the average dealer, all of you on average, was spending $300 per car sale in advertising. Now, we had the internet come out, we had CRMs come out, we have all these like automation tools that profess to be able to target the right consumer, follow up with the right consumer, close them at a higher rate. Yet our advertising spend divided by car sales is going in the wrong direction consistently every single year. There's another metric. If I was a CMO of a dealer group, I'd probably say, get all my vendors together, have a conference and say, look, I don't like this, and I'm going to shave $100 per year off of this, and the weakest of you will not be with me in a year. If you can help me drive down costs, advertising costs per car sale, then you're going to be with me. You're going to be my best friend. Otherwise, I'm not going to have you in a year. So I do think that now would be the time to think of which metrics you want to drive, hold the vendors accountable. And to be honest with you, you should be indifferent whether this is powered by AI. Look, 5 years from now, we will not be talking about AI because AI will be woven into all these tools. And I don't know what those tools will look like, but AI is a very popular buzzword today. It's just a different way of approaching automation. And it shouldn't matter to you how your vendors are going to achieve these goals and drive more efficiency per employee. Just make sure that you're focused on this, because if you aren't, other dealers will be. So the interesting thing for me, and really what sparked this conversation with Alan, was this. I think there's this unique opportunity for Alan and his team to help dealers well in advance of selling their stores to say, look, let's implement some of these things, pull some of these levers, drive more profitability. I'm certain that when you sell your stores eventually, whenever that is, you'd like to be generating more consistent, provable profit and have a higher multiple when you sell. And then I've never met a dealer once. I don't know how this can be, because there can't be more than 50% of the stores in America that are underperforming. But I've never met a dealer once who doesn't buy underperforming stores. So pretty awesome that there's so many underperforming stores out there. But listen, this is the same thing. What's your 90-day plan post-acquisition? It should be to say, look, there aren't any sacred cows when you buy stores, I'm assuming. Now it's time to let's pull levers. Let's figure out how aggressive we want to be with driving out cost or stealing market share from my competitors. Ideally, if it's a sleepy operated store, then you should take that opportunity to say, can I really focus on taking out costs in terms of driving more productivity for my employees and driving more profitability overall? So if you get the reference, you can choose to take the blue pill. Status quo is okay, actually, because I think you're going to see all this play out and you'll be able to adopt best practices from other dealers. But I do think, especially on the revenue acceleration side, there is the opportunity to take the red pill and pop out of the matrix, see reality, and then go deep. And I do think, as I said, not so much on the cost side. I know repeating myself here, but I do think if you wanted to conquest variable ops, fixed ops, there is this opportunity right now to be embracing some of these AI tools, to be stealing market share in your local markets. And that won't last, because if you don't capitalize on that opportunity, other dealers will. And then, as a very wise man who's against the wall here likes to say, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is now. I think there is a unique opportunity to ride this wave with all the uncertainty, this AI wave, and try to figure out how we can help you pull levers to drive more profitability, increase your net worth. Is that good, Alan? There you go. And I have 2 minutes and 15 seconds left. So I think we do have time for questions, and I'll do my best to field them. And feel free to launch some zingers at me if you'd like. And then we got a mic over here. Any questions? Dinos.
Yes, I have a question. So talk a little bit about personnel here. It's also or daily advertise or big project. That's what.
Yeah. So there was a yeah. Well, I'll reiterate. So Dino said, personnel cost is great, but there's also this big elephant in the room, which is advertising spend, and how he thinks advertising spend will play out. So interestingly enough, so Brendan over here, when he was with a different store that is to be not to be disclosed, I met with him, and I was shocked at how low his advertising cost was per consumer. Shocking to me, because they focused maniacally, my words, not his, on customer experience. Like customers that would buy, their 5 cars in a row and service all their cars, and they would never think about buying from a different car. So I think it's all around the customer experience, holding your vendors accountable and say, look, I really want to increase customer experience to drive loyalty. In your markets, you capture a certain amount of vehicles in operation, but you lose a lot. You lose a lot to independent dealers. John has a great slide where he shows how much revenue and profit is being generated by independent shops, and this opportunity to pull more of that work above the waterline on the iceberg. It's a great slide. Hopefully he shows that slide today. But Dinos, I think it's all about customer experience and getting in front of these customers and figuring out ways to provide them just a better experience that other dealers or independent shops are providing. Other questions?
Where do you see dealers inserting AI? For instance, we are putting it in our service BDC, but there's no, without customer facing, I can't replace service advisor. They can't replace salespeople without compromising the experience.
Yep, great question. So I'll reiterate the question. So where should we be thinking about implementing AI? She's implementing AI right now within BDC service BDC, but other areas like customer-facing roles like salespeople, service advisors, et cetera, more challenged in terms of figuring out how to layer in AI. I would attack, no sacred cows here, the BDC. I think 5 years from now, dealers are going to look back at BDCs, whether service BDC, sales BDCs, say, why on earth did I have low-paid people that have drug problems, that call in sick, that quit, high turnover? These are the people that I'm trusting to be my first line of defense from a customer experience? It's like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I'll challenge you with this. It's like, when's the last time you talked to a human at Amazon? Who's an Amazon Prime customer? And for those that didn't raise your hand, somebody in your household is. So you're all Amazon Prime customers. When's the last time you talked to anybody at Amazon? And is their CSI bad? No. Because you know what? I don't want to talk to a customer. And frankly, when I get on a chat and I've got, they sent me the wrong product or whatever, I have to return it. I have no idea if that's a human. It probably isn't a human, but I don't really care because they resolve my problem immediately in a great way that's very pleasing, and they take off all the rough edges. So I do think that, I would just encourage you to be very open-minded, look around all the different departments of the dealership and say, if there weren't any sacred cows, what would I attack? And I think the BDC is definitely, as you're doing, get rid of those people. Like, get rid of them. And let them go on down the road to better jobs somewhere else. They're going to turn over anyway. So as they turn over, just don't backfill them.
Are you seeing other dealerships do, other than BDC, which is an obvious?
Yeah.
Are you seeing other dealerships do other parts?
Just really, as you'll see here, the real thing that I'm hearing from owners is phone call handling. Phone call handling in general, just turning it on, even just for the phone calls after hours. Turn that on, getting nodding here. I mean, it's amazing. And by the way, we looked at all those vendors. We didn't invest in any of them. Not to say that's good or bad, but I don't think they're particularly differentiated. I don't think those businesses are defensible from an investment standpoint because some kids a year from now are going to come out with better technology, and it's going to be great for all of you. So don't sign long-term contracts with any of them. But I do think that technology is just going to keep getting better and better. And just turn on phone call answering after hours, and you're going to start generating revenue. And by the way, CSI goes up because what's the most frustrating thing for a consumer? They call your dealership and they can't get someone on a call. It's like really annoying. And then they might call your competitor. So I think that's low-hanging fruit. I would look for tools for your BDC reps to begin with, just to be more productive. There's tools that you can go find at NAD for that. And then phone call answering, start there. That's the lightest version. And you'll find immediate benefit from what I'm hearing from dealers. And then you dip your toe in and start to figure out how you want to go heavy later. I got one more. Don.
Do you see, will the DMS be an enabler of this, or the boat anchor?
Yeah. I mean, we're amongst friends and there's no vendors in here except for Aaron. So you can play your ears. Yeah, I mean, look, what we've seen evolve over the last 20 years is this constellation of applications outside the DMS. The DMS provides a good function, good in air quotes, accounting, OEM integrations, these kinds of things. But for the most part, the DMS providers are threatened by entrepreneurs who are innovating. They make all of you pay integration fees that are onerous multiple times over and over, right? You know the story. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. And the DMSs are so big now, they're like the Titanic. In some cases, we wish they would sink, maybe, but they move so slowly that the only way that they can quote unquote innovate is to acquire companies, which is great for investors like me. My whole thesis is that Reynolds, Cox, CDK will buy our companies eventually. It's just really, really hard. Aaron, I'm sure, has lots of stories, but it's really, really hard. I was 15 years at Cox. It was really, really hard back then for us to innovate anything, to germinate a new idea. The only idea that they really ever started from scratch was Chip's company, right? Chip Harry started Auto Trader, and that was the one example of them having success germinating something from scratch. So I think that the DMSs will continue to struggle. They'll be threatened. And I think even more so now that, you can have employees that can quote unquote vibe code applications, that if you have the integrations in the DMS, you will literally at your dealership be building customized software. It'll be pretty good. It'll be very focused on delivering certain functions. But if you have pain points, mark my words on this, if you have pain points and your DMS isn't responsive and isn't building stuff that you want, within 18 months, you'll be able to say, forget it, just give me an API, I'm going to go build it myself. And if you don't give me the API, I'm just going to cancel you. And that all is going to play out, I think, very, very quickly here, which is all very good. We're going to put power back into the hands of dealers overall, I think. We're good? Am I going to get yanked off the stage here? Okay, that's my email address. If you'd like a copy of this presentation, happy to be a thought partner with any of you around this stuff anytime that you want. And good luck on the exhibit floor. Go push and prod on your vendors a little bit and see what they can do for you. Thanks.